Hey guys, we're here taking a serious tone with Coach Tone. We're at Proof Fitness downtown West Main, and I actually have a question for Tony today that's been weighing heavy on my mind. Glute activation and how to grow my glutes. So I'm gonna ask Tony, how do I grow my glutes?
Well, there's a couple of different ways to go about that. The first of all is, in order to grow any muscle, you have to make sure we have enough calories to grow the muscle. So that's one of the biggest things that a lot of people that are trying to accomplish the goal, they want to reduce calories, do a lot of cardio, but yet want bigger glutes. Doesn't work like that.
Got it.
But what we'll talk about today is 3 things that will help optimize that if we do have good nutrition for muscle growth.
Okay.
First one that we'll talk about is how to properly activate our glutes.
Okay.
So we can't make them work if they're not properly activated or put in good positions, so we can optimize how hard they are. So the first exercise that we'll work on is an actual exercise to activate the glutes. Now this exercise is not particularly really specific to the glutes, but it plays a huge part in activation. And it's what we call this exercise just a forward lean. I think a lot of people call this maybe a dragon stretch or a lizard stretch in yoga. Same concept. What we're trying to do is loosen the hip flexor quad area. That way you can maximize how much glute activation you're gonna have. So what you're trying to do is lean forward into this lunge, keeping your chest upright and feeling it in this hip flexor area. If you're really tight in the quads, you'll also feel it there. And you want to hold this position for about a minute. And you're trying to feel for each second that your hip is actually moving forward. And then once in a great while, you can also add a little glute tightness by activating it while you're in this position. And then relaxing. Activating it and then relaxing. You'll feel your quad get closer to the pad here. That's letting you know, okay, I am getting loose. Especially if you do something for a living where you're always sitting down, or you're constantly sitting down if you're a student. You'll want to make sure that you have good hip flexor health and flexibility and mobility. Our next exercise to activate the glutes is a glute bridge. So I'm going to set Jana up on this box. It's about a 12-inch box that we use to elevate ourselves, to make sure that we're getting some good activation. So first thing she's going to do is she's going to lay down on her back, and I'm going to ask her when she lays down to make sure that her feet are at 90 degrees. When her feet are at 90 degrees, I'm concentrating on a couple things here. Number one is that there is ankle dorsiflexion. So I want to make sure that her ankles are really flexed. That way we're going to be able to get some good glute activation. The next thing I'll ask her is, I know that she's at 90 degrees. Not only you can see me, but I'm going to slide my hand under the small of her back. I want her to squeeze my hand with the lower part of her back or her spine, almost like she's driving her spine into the floor, so that I know she's activating her core properly. A lot of things that I'll see in the gym, most common mistake is that people do this exercise with a high arch. So that way when they're doing their exercises, they're actually lifting their hips with their lower back. We don't want that. We want to make sure that core is engaged, so she's in the crust. There you go. Can't even slide my hand under that now. And then when she does her actual reps, she's going to squeeze glutes, keeping her core tight. Let's get a couple reps in here, Jana. She's going to drive her heels to the box, keeping her core tight. And then at the very top, she's going to hold it for a couple seconds. So core, drive, squeeze, and then back down. Core, drive, through the heels, squeeze her glutes, down. We'll do one more rep. We're gonna go core, drive heels and squeeze, and then back down. And relax. If you do it like that, you're gonna feel a lot more glute activation. It's gonna take some time. You gotta take your time through the exercise, but you're gonna notice about 15 reps. You're gonna do that. Not only is your core engaged, but your glutes are getting fired up. Next thing we'll work on is show you an exercise that we use to actually make them grow. So with a lot of exercises that people do to make them grow, and believe it or not, some don't work as much as others. Some don't activate the glutes as much as others. So I'll show you an exercise that we can use to optimize it. Okay, so now we're going to talk about an exercise that I like to use to increase the size of the glutes. This is called a bar glute bridge that we do on the floor. So we're going to go through the same setup that we did with the glute bridge. We're going to make sure that our heels have contact on the floor, our legs are at a 90 degree, Jenna's going to hold the bar on the side, and she's also going to activate her core before she starts actually going through her bridge. Again, if you're doing this exercise and you're first arching your back and lifting this up with your back, you're not going to get as much benefit as possible. So we'll go through a couple of these reps and I'll talk her through it. So the first thing we're going to do is core activation, drive through the heels, and then make sure you squeeze the glutes at the top and then down. Again, core, drive, squeeze those glutes. One more time, core, heels, drive, and then back down. This is an exercise that you want to be able to do a lot more reps than any other exercise, so I would recommend about 20 reps. And the third one, once we get them big, then we need to get them strong.
Sure.
Strong because right now a lot of people are trying to do a lot more athletic type of training programs and more than anything to help with the risk of injury. Okay. And like myself, hurting my back.
Yes.
Got to make sure my glutes are stronger so I don't hurt my back. So I'll show you something to strengthen up. So this next exercise is what I use to improve our glute strength. So glute strength is important for a couple different reasons. You want to make sure that when you're doing exercises that are more quote-unquote functional, like jumping or doing power exercises, like cleans, kettlebells, whether you're doing powerlifting exercises, that you have the right musculature to be able to handle that. So this exercise is a hip thrust that we use, and equipment that you'll need is the equipment we've been using, bar, some plates, and a bench. That way you can position yourself a little bit higher than the previous exercise that we used for hypertrophy. So the way we set this up, we're going to set our shoulders up against this bench. We're going to make sure that our heels are still making contact with the floor. Jenna's hands are going to be on the side of the bar, and the first rep is always the most important because as she squeezes her core, drives through the floor with her heels, and gets that hip bridge going, that she positions her shoulders properly on the bench. She'll do one rep to show us that. Core, drive, squeeze, and then she'll slide back a little bit just in case she gets off the bench. She's going to line that neck nice and tight, and then drop down, and then up again. Back down. She's going to remember this movement goes through my hips, so activate my core, drive my heels, squeeze the glutes for at least a second, and then back down and relax. So in this rep range, I like to use probably about 5 to 6 reps, and I'm using some weight. I'm using a lot more weight than I did in my previous exercise, which was the floor bridge. I want to make sure that it's actually challenging, and that if I'm feeling a little bit of pain, and one thing that I like to recommend is using these pads. I really don't like them for anything else other than a little bit of padding when I'm doing this exercise.
Okay, so that was taking a serious tone with tone. Today we talked about activation of the glutes, how to strengthen your glutes, and what else?
How to get them bigger.
How to make them bigger! So thank you so much, Tony. You're awesome, and we'll see you next time.